This is your host, Stewart Kraintz. Before we jump into today's message, please be sure to like and subscribe. Please hit that bell icon so you continue to get those notifications for all of our amazing content and guests. And we want to make sure that we are getting our message out as far and wide as we can. Cost of admission to this show is always free. So please, please, please share this out with at least one individual that you know that this would impact. We want to be fulfilling our mission here of helping people live the lives of their dreams. So want to jump right into the show today. So last week, we talked a lot about self-worth. It's obviously a very important thing. Our self-worth or lack thereof tends to dictate much of our lives. It actually has been proven scientifically to shape how we view the life around us. It's almost like a lens filter, like you would see on Instagram. It's the same images you're looking at as any other time, but the way that you feel about yourself is going to change how you perceive the things and the events around you. And so, what I wanted to talk about today, because it's not the same but quite related, is to talk about our goals, and more importantly, who are they for? And I know some of you hearing me say that already just got a little bit of a ping. And if that was you, just listen up because this is going to be really important this week. So, self worth is paramount. And if you missed last week's episode, please go back and listen. It was a very short, quick, but very pithy episode. Lots of value there, all about self worth and really just an opportunity to take a look in the mirror about who you are and how you view yourself. But the question of who anything you are up to is for is really important to look at because the two go hand in hand. So for those of you that know me, know that I love to run. I love running races. I love 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. I don't know if I'm ever going to run a full marathon. I just not something that is really calling to me at this time, but I love to get out there and run. I love the feeling of being in the throngs of people, in the corrals, the energy, kind of that energy of possibility, that nervous anticipation. And I love, might not feel great in the moment, but I love putting in the work necessary in order to be able to run 13.1 miles in a go without stopping to walk. I love the feeling of personal self-accomplishment at the end. I even love amassing a collection of race bibs and t-shirts. They always give you a free t-shirt. And I also enjoy having the collection of medals. You do get a medal when you complete these races more often than not. But the thing I want to look at here is and ask you, the listener, are you doing it just for the medal? And more importantly, if you're doing it just for the medal, what type of hole is that trying to fill for you? I saw a meme on social media that tends to go around around race season. So it goes around in the spring, kind of dies off in the summer. It's going to start going around again here any day now, I'm sure, on Instagram and TikTok. And it's something to the effect of, remember the straight A students in your school, the kids that had all the honors and were captains of the sports team and were, student president, blah, 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 blah. Now they run marathons. And what that's playing at is the trope, which is all too real, of the person that has to continue to achieve and accomplish and check the boxes and accomplish and create this killer resume, all to feel good about themselves. And the reason I want to bring this up today is that typically, if you find yourself, if you are listening to me saying this in this moment, and this is stirring anything up in you, like this is actually directly tied to your self-worth. And full disclosure, y'all, this is who I have been for most of my life. I have done a lot of work, a lot of therapy, a lot of emotional intelligence training to undo a lot of this. But it's really important to take a look, like, are you doing this for you or is it for someone else? Is this journey that you're on, are the goals you are pursuing, are they actually for you or are they for someone else? Let me explain. So when I was young, like I'm talking really young, like early elementary school, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, so on and so forth, I was a very unathletic kid. Very unathletic, very shy, very sensitive. Definitely not one of the boys, let's say. I was picked on a lot in after school daycare by the older boys because I did not meet the standard of masculinity in young boys in the 1990s. I just didn't. I got made fun of for the way I dressed. I got made fun of for the way I looked. I got made fun of for the way I talked. Got called all types of names that I'm sure you can imagine that I'm not going to repeat here. But the point being is that at a very early age, I got a lot of feedback from people I looked up to, the older boys, some coaches, if I'm going to be honest, in sports, and even in television and TV. Like the hero was always the big, strong, manly man, with the impossible muscles. And everybody looked up to him and everybody wanted to be him. And he was popular and could do no wrong. Me being a smart kid, that was the one thing I really had going for me was I was really smart compared to a lot of my peers. I picked up on all of that right away. And I internalized at a very young age that everything that was acceptable and worth loving was not who I was. And in fact, it was an impossible standard for me to hit. You guys might think this is silly, but this is a real thing. And I want to share this because I'm sure you have similar experiences in your life that, stir something up in you that might seem inconsequential to other people. But I do want to talk about it here, something for me, because I want to normalize this and make this okay for anybody listening to this. One of the I'm not going to call it traumatizing. I think that's a little too far, but a memory from that period of my life that sticks with me that I hate is I remember in, again, early elementary school PE playing duck, duck, goose. Like we would have a big group of kids, we'd form that big ring in either the auditorium at my elementary school or outside. And I was slow, y'all. If you picked me, if we did duck, 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 and I was the goose, there was zero chance I could catch up to you. Like it was actually a dead ringer for me to get picked because all the other boys and even some of the girls, which to a young boy like me was even more embarrassing, was that if you picked me, I could not catch you. There was nothing in me that could catch you. I would try my hardest. I'd be stuck going around the circle. I would try my hardest to pick people I thought I could catch so that I didn't have to be the one running around. They would still run me down and catch me, and I'd still have to be the person. I'd still have to be it. And I remember the jeering and the comments from the other kids about how I was slow and I couldn't catch anybody. And that memory is burned in the back of my head as just being something of one example of a good number of examples that I could come up with if I really thought about it that solidified for me at a very young age that I was not okay the way I was. And I needed to be acceptable. I needed to be loved. just like any other person on this earth. And so the strategy that I came up with at an early age was I'm going to accomplish things. I am going to achieve things. I'm going to be better than everybody else at the things that I can be better than everybody else at. And there weren't that many, but when I found one, I went all in. I was more academically gifted than the majority of my peers. I finished in the top, I think, 5 in my high school class, if I'm not mistaken. I was not a star by any means, but I did play varsity basketball, was the kid that signed up to be a part of every club he could get his hands on in high school, really just so I could have the line item in the yearbook at the end of the year, not because I actually wanted to care or be a part of it. It was all about checking the box. It was all about achieving. It was all about grasping for this love in the way that I learned at an early age was the way for me to go about it. And what that created over time is somebody who didn't actually know what he wanted or why. It created somebody who felt hopeless and felt despair when I couldn't accomplish things. I remember I would be absolutely despondent for a week if I got a B on a report card. Like a B plus on a report card would ruin my life for weeks because I not only assigned all of my self worth to being the straight A student, to being better than everybody else in these ways, but I assigned my ability to receive love and to be worthy of love to these things. And I want you guys to sit with that because this is my story, but I promise you it's applicable to a lot of the folks listening to this today. And I know that this is a challenging topic, but it's critically important that you really sit with this and let this land. So much of what we do in our lives is a manifestation of the behaviors that we learned as a child. More often than not, it's behaviors that we learned as a mechanism to either survive if we were in an environment with a lot of trauma where, maybe a meal or shelter or stability of our parents was not guaranteed, or like me, it was to get love, and particularly love of our peers. And I'm sure a lot of you listening to this are, scoffing, thinking that, oh, this doesn't apply to you. It actually probably does to some degree. Because how often have you done something or bought something, bought a car, bought a house, bought an outfit, went out to a fancy dinner, and immediately threw it up on Instagram because you needed to show off? Who is that for? Who is it for? Like, is anybody's life actually made different because you went and bought some designer shoes? Did anybody actually respect you or love you more because you went out to the most expensive restaurant in town and bought the steak? Probably not. And it's not just showing off in that way, y'all. Many of us grind away at careers that we absolutely hate, working in environments that we despise because we don't want to be judged for doing something less stable or less prestigious, or that, God forbid, makes less money than what we're currently doing now. And it's often at the cost of who we are and our own happiness and our own fulfillment. To really illustrate this point, guys, I know I've talked about it a lot on this show, but I have a group of guy friends from home. Love them to death. We've been friends for a very long time. I actually don't put this on them. all of these learned behaviors because I became tight with most of them after that early elementary school period. But I developed this avatar in my head of every time I think I would want to do something, I would think about what they're going to think. Specifically, what are they going to think? What are they going to say? How are they going to respond to me telling them that I have done X, Y, or Z, or that I got to go to this place, or I met this famous person? Guess what, y'all? They did not care ever. Much to my chagrin, a lot of the time, much to my frustration, they did not care most of the time because all along they liked me for me. But I had taken those awful experiences of early childhood, of early elementary school, and somehow transposed it onto them as the people that I was always trying to impress. And I know a couple of them listen to this show, so like shout out to you guys, like no shade whatsoever. Like thank you guys for being the amazing friends that you have been for going on 30 years. Like you guys are truly a blessing. But the reason I bring this up is because they became this avatar in my head. And I'm willing to bet that you have one for you too, if you've listened this far. Like, really check in with yourself. Who are you trying to impress with what you're up to? Because it matters. Doing the work of learning who you're trying to impress, or even just like the abstract idea of who you're trying to impress, is how you actually begin to heal. Once you understand who that is, you can get underneath why. And once you have your why, you can begin to deconstruct it for yourself. The way it worked for me, y'all, is I've talked about it a lot. My flame out of the baseball industry. I left the New York Yankees in, I'm not going to say disgrace, but definitely not on the best circumstances. My health was failing. I was struggling with the stress, the 100+ hour work weeks. And I remember sitting in a bar directly across from the stadium, having just resigned. My life is over. I had tied my entire identity into being Stu, the sports guy. And all I could think about at that bar was, what are other people going to think of me? That is an awful prison to live in, mentally and emotionally. And so many of us live in a prison like that of our own design. These are shackles, these are cages, these are chains that we forge ourselves, all in a misguided attempt to go get love from some abstract source that usually we misattribute, like where I had been doing most of my life. And y'all, like, it's worth doing the work to get underneath it so that you can be the most fulfilled, happy version of yourself. I do this podcast because I want to. I do this podcast because it brings me joy. Yes, I have goals. I have dreams. I want to interview really big names and have a top podcast and be able to have an impact in the world. But I also know that I could stop doing it tomorrow and I would be okay as a human being. This show could stop growing and it's not going to change how I feel about myself in the mirror. And it took a lot of work to get here. If I really trace it back, I would say it took 6 years of pretty consistent work to get here. But good Lord, was it worth it? I think maybe the thing that I'm the proudest of for having done the work is that I'm much more patient with my son now than I ever was before. Didn't have anything to do with him acting a fool or being spoiled or whatever the thing may be that was so true and was making me so angry in the moment. I just learned how to feel whole in myself, to know that I am worthy, I have self worth, I am perfect exactly as I am. I don't need to chase love from anybody. I am lovable exactly as I am. And you, the listeners, are too. You are perfect exactly as you are. You are lovable. You are whole. There's nothing missing from you. You are God's creation. He made you perfectly exactly as you are. You are a gift. And somewhere along the way, you forgot that, just like I did. And there is no judgment in me saying that, by the way. What I want to make sure I leave you guys with today, I keep talking about, I did a lot of work. I did all this, blah, blah, blah. This is my experience. Please, please, please do this work for yourself. And the way I recommend you get started is to work with a professional if you can. Find somebody that you feel safe with, because that's critically important. Find somebody that you're willing to open up to, and then actually go there. Go there with yourself. I don't mean in the physical sense. It's like, I think it totally works to do virtual therapy, like on your smartphone or on a laptop. But when I say go there, I mean really allow yourself to open up. Use the safe space and the container for what it is. Full disclosure, y'all, I was seeing 2 therapists at one point at the same time. Yes, it cost a lot of money, but it was totally worth it. I had one guy I would absolutely come apart with every single session. I would be bawling my eyes out, snot everywhere. I was saying stuff out loud that I had been stuffing down for 20 years at that point, and I needed that. So I'd have my come apart over there, and then I'd go to the other guy, and I would just logically talk this all out with him because I was ready to do that after I had the come apart. I'm not saying you need to have 2 therapists too by any stretch, but you know what? That's what it took for me. And I was so tired of being miserable and so tired of feeling like there was this hole that I always had to fulfill. Like there was always this bar I had to jump over, like feeling like I was always just out of reach of being loved and accepted, that I decided I was going to do whatever it took. And that's what it took for me. And so if you're going to do the work, and please do the work, you need to really go there. Be committed, all in, no shit. Because it's not just you. It's not just your happiness, it's not just your fulfillment, it's not just your sense of self that matters. Somebody in your life is looking up to you. Probably your kids if you have them. If you don't have them, you have somebody in your life that is looking up to you in some capacity. They're probably never going to say that to your face, but I promise you that they're there. I hear it all the time. Like people come up to me, be like, "Oh, that podcast episode you did was incredible." And it would be like an episode from months ago. You never know the impact you're having. I guarantee it. You are modeling behavior for somebody. And even if that's the only impact that you're having in the world in this chapter of your life, it's still important. Because how you are and how you're being in the world makes a difference for other people. Are you tight and anxious all the time because you're trying to get to your goal nonstop? Or Are you coming from a place of ease and flow and, hey, maybe I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to figure it out and it's all going to be okay? Those are two entirely different energies. Which one would you rather be around? Just think about it. And so go out there, go get help, go do the work because it's totally worth it. If therapy isn't exactly where you want to go, talk to a pastor, talk to a leader in your church, get some type of spiritual guidance. My personal belief, I'm a Christian. I don't make any apologies for that. Whoever your creator is, find a spiritual leader based on what you believe, because there is a level of spirituality to this that can be very healing. 12-step programs such as AA all have a spiritual component because there is something bigger here. There is a reason we are here. And more often than not, we're trying to control what we're up to on the earth so much that we block our ability to receive what our higher purpose is, what our higher calling is, what we're meant to be doing here on this earth with the limited amount of time that we have. So I highly recommend leaning in spiritually as well. There's a lot of healing there available. For me personally, feeling loved by my creator for the first time did a lot of the healing for me. So it's just something to consider. The last thing I would highly recommend is look for a community. Find a men's group, find a women's group, find a group of people that you feel safe with, that you can open up to, that you can have these conversations with, because guess what? You're not the only one feeling this way. You are not the only person struggling with fulfillment, with a sense of self, with your self-worth. In my experience, learning that you are not alone makes the problem feel a lot smaller. Feels like something you can overcome. It no longer feels like this big immense thing, and it also normalizes not feeling okay. Not in the sense of this is how I'm going to feel every day, but hey, I'm not the only person that doesn't feel like they're enough. And then some of these people can begin to reflect for you all of the ways that you're great, because you have greatness in you. You just forgot along the way. And then when all else fails, y'all, we build self-confidence and self-worth by keeping our promises to ourselves, but only if we acknowledge ourselves for what we're up to. So we begin to flip that script on our self-worth of our need to always accomplish and achieve, to impress other people. By changing how we look at ourselves in the mirror. And we do that by acknowledging all that we're up to and how worthy we are. And the fact that we are perfect exactly as we are in this moment, listening to my voice. So please sit with that today, wherever you're listening to this, whether it's in your car, whether you're exercising, whether you're folding the laundry, doesn't matter. Just sit with it today, because you're worth it. The people in your lives are worth it. Your gifts to the world are worth it. And you matter. So as always, y'all, this has been your host, Stewart Kraintz. This is your inside track to success. We will see you next week with another amazing guest or message. Please like, please subscribe, please follow, and please share this out with somebody that you know that this can make a difference for. We'll see you then.